Hi everyone, welcome to another one of our CX conversations. Today we're talking about modernising digital experiences within B2B organisations, and I'm delighted to be joined by Myles from Cloud Gateway. Myles, do you want to tell the guys a little bit about your role and about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. And yeah, secondly, so my name's Myles Clarke. I am the marketing director at Cloud Gateway. So we were incorporated in 2017. I joined shortly after. At this point, there was the three of us and just one customer. We're now up to sort of 250 customers and 50 odd members of staff. So it's been quite the journey. My primary responsibilities, as you might expect, sort of aligning the vision for the business with the go-to-market strategy. More recently, what that's involved is a small repositioning from a SaaS company to a network as a service or NaaS provider. We were fortunate enough to secure some additional investment back in March. So it's been a pretty busy few months as we've embarked upon that journey. But yeah, plenty of fun and lots to look forward to in the next 6 months or so.
And you mentioned that you're only a couple of years old as an organisation, so by your very nature, you would have been pretty digitally immature at the point of inception. So I just wonder, what advice would you give other digitally immature organisations when it comes to thinking about, seamless multi-channel customer experiences?
Well, from our perspective, just leaning on some of my own experiences, I inherited a bit of a muddle in terms of the technology stack within the marketing department and those tools that span across multiple divisions. So for me, it was about assessing and evaluating what we already had in place, working out where we are now, and then more importantly, working out where we wanted to be in sort of 3 to 6 months' time, and then equally importantly, where we want to be in 12 to 18 months. I don't need to tell you this, but there's new and emerging tools coming in all the time, not just from a marketing and go-to-market perspective, but across the business. So yeah, understanding how that worked holistically, how all these tools came together to deliver value to us internally, but also, and most importantly, to our customers was really important. So it sounds a little bit boring, but it was almost taking one step back to take 2 steps forward, and to understand what we wanted to achieve and the outcome we wanted to get from our technology stack.
So in summary, you kind of took a step back, thought about the customer experiences you wanted to create, and thought about what kind of data you needed to kind of drive those experiences and how you connected it all together.
Yeah, exactly. So our 3 kind of core tools, if you will, or channels are our website, our customer portal, and then I guess I group together everything else. So that for us is partner marketplaces, social media, that sort of thing. So those platforms are incredibly rich in data. There is what feels like an infinite amount of data that we're kind of collecting and harnessing, and obviously trying to drive intelligence and insights from them that we can use to better inform the activities, sort of more conventional marketing and sales activities, but more importantly, I guess, how can we deliver additional value to our customers? And that comes back to personalized experiences, understanding the customer and user journey from prospect right through to, we've had some of our customers sort of 5-6 years now, almost as long as we've been around. So yeah, ensuring that we don't rest on our laurels with those guys at that end, but also making sure we're delivering, in a world where digital expectations from consumers and users is changing and evolving all the time. We need to make sure we meet that expectation as effectively as possible, and of course in a timely fashion.
So you mentioned you've been through a few cycles of assessing and analysing the value of the technology you're using, making sure they're the right fit for your kind of stage in growth that you're at and the needs you have as an organisation. I wonder if you've got any examples of really great impacts you've seen from replacing a piece of technology over the last few years, be that from a customer perspective or from a business perspective?
Yeah, I mean, one that springs to mind that probably straddles both of those 2 things is the website. So we had a functional website for the first 3 or 4 years. It kind of served the purpose for which you needed to at the time, but it became very clear that we needed to there were some optimizations that we needed to make and fairly quickly. So we actually moved over to Storyblock. As I said, we've relatively recently moved sort of categorizing ourselves as a NAS provider, and that's an emerging technology. I won't bore you with all the details of exactly what it entails, but there's an educational piece there that is kind of incumbent on organizations like us who want to grow in this space. So, we need to create and distribute a great variety and volume of content. We have been doing that over the last 6 to 12 months and certainly will be going forward as well. And we simply weren't able to do that with the tool that we used before. But as I said, with Storyblock, we can spin up landing pages, deploy content, A/B test very, very quickly. So we've moved from sort of a tech-led tool and processes to a marketing-led. So that frees up a ton of our time. If we're just talking about deploying a new piece of content, again, we can do that in a couple of clicks of the button. We can test different variations. Storyblock allows us to create and configure different components to work out what's resonating best, not just with our audience as a whole, but with the different segmentations within our target audience. We operate or target sort of healthcare, public sector, financial services. There's some similarities and commonalities across those audiences, but there's also quite a few differences. And the previous tool didn't allow us to speak to that. So they were getting a very similar experience. And then at the other end, we did a pretty big refresh, as you guys know very well. You kind of sort of led on that. I don't believe we'd have been able to achieve what we achieved with a very hard deadline. We wanted to announce the investment. We wanted to announce the move to NAS. Without that tooling in place, established, I think we'd have really struggled to meet that deadline. So, from our perspective, that was fantastic. And again, going back to the customer gets a much more personalized, bespoke experience now, whether they're landing on our website, our social channels, or our customer portal.
Yeah, I remember that project. I was a little bit involved in helping you out at the beginning, and I think it was really clear to me that actually we wouldn't have been able to have rebranded and reskinned the entire website within that time frame. I think we had about a month and a bit, didn't we, to get it done in the end, without having a really well built and well enabled CMS behind us, and that's what Storyblock kind of gave us.
Yeah, so you guys were obviously critical in this in terms of like laying a foundation, having everything we needed, so as and when these new requirements emerged, we were able to respond with agility and sort of decisiveness. So yeah, there was a piece of work obviously that we had to do before that, but then we arrive at this big project, which the eyes of the business are on. Our new investors, for example. So it was critical. It was a flagship project for the business that year, not just marketing and my team. So for us to be able to deliver it so quickly, I think, well, it more than met. It exceeded the expectations of my stakeholders. And so, yeah, from our perspective, that was really, really important.
Yeah, I think it was also key that we didn't cut any corners. We made sure that what we left you with was a CMS which was as usable as what you had before.
Yeah, I guess, and just developing that point one further, we always recognised that was phase one. So again, without going into too much detail, it was the end of our financial year, so there's a finite amount of budget. So we were able to get a huge amount of what we wanted to achieve in phase one, but we evolved those foundations so that we in the marketing team, again, and this speaks to the kind of flexibility and configurations that you're able to employ or deploy, I should say, in Storyblock, we were able to then continue that project. And I think we're about to embark on phase two, if you will, and the project has not stood still since then, and that's a credit to what we did as a team, but also the tool itself.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that again, the outcomes that you were hoping for from that project. Just going back to the point earlier where we were talking about how many tools you had in place at Cloud Gateway when you arrived, and just I guess the MarTech landscape in general is quite vast now. It feels like every other day there's a new piece of tech coming out there. From your point of view, what do you think are the most important or the most powerful tools a digital marketeer can have in their arsenal?
Yeah, good question. So to your first point, yes, we have. So I have a line item on my budget for each subscription we have. Your sort of $10.99 tool, right through to ones that cost hundreds and thousands of pounds. Yeah, there's a ton to keep up with. So I spend a huge amount of my time with one ear to the market, and I've got a lot of friends and colleagues that are working in and around the space that I operate within. So yeah, keeping ahead, and like you said, with each new month and quarter that comes around, there's either a new tool or an update to an old tool. So yeah, keeping, like I said, a holistic view around how these component pieces of a larger tech stack fit and play with each other is obviously important. And making sure that within a little your tech stack is fit for the purpose that you originally implemented it for is important. And we were talking earlier that you need to review and audit that relatively regularly. It's an easy job to put off. It's not the most fun part of the role, but it's critically important. Like I said, the data and analytics stuff is probably the bit that I'm most interested in. Like I said, we have huge amounts of data, like a lot of organizations do these days, right? So we have a huge amount of data coming into our CRM, and it's the data and analytics tools that I enjoy working with most of all, because that's where all that data, you can convert that to a tangible outcome, and it can be relatively simple. It can be understanding where people are landing on your website, which bits they're scrolling past, which bits they're hanging around and reading right through to the bottom of the page, and then informing the the next wave of content that particular audience are going to get. When we talk about the portal side of things, it's much more around AI, and for us, that's around understanding issues and trends in kind of the network and security space, right? And then the data we collect there, we can leverage as marketeers to kind of inform and improve and optimize the user journey at the front end.
So if we just recap on your journey you've been on, you had a website, a first iteration website, and then you worked with us as your new partner to help you with like taking that website on and developing it and evolving the brand and stuff moving forward. So I think the guys would be really interesting to understand what kind of qualities do you look for when selecting a new agency partner to work with, be that with your website or with another piece of technology that you need to implement within the business?
Yeah, this is really topical at the moment, actually, because we're constantly reviewing what our kind of ecosystem of partners and agencies look like. And I think, it's not sound too corporate, we kind of look for what we preach to our customers, which is kind of a strategic partner. Like I said, there's a lot of new tools and technologies out there, all claiming to solve this challenge or help you with this problem. From my perspective, we want an organization that is a good cultural fit, and that is someone who is thinking longer term, not just looking at the new shiny toy that's around or back on the market, I should say. It's actually, what problems we're looking to solve now, and what problems are we expecting to emerge, and what trends are we expecting to emerge over the next 6 to 12 to 18 months that we can begin putting a plan in place for now. So I definitely say that, again, a bit of a cliche answer, but a cultural fit, sharing similar values is definitely important to us. I think, understanding our business and taking the time to understand our business and the specific challenges we have. I say that because some of the challenges we have are a little bit niche because of the market we operate in and kind of the journey we've been on, particularly the last sort of 6 to 12 months. And a good case in point is kind of your assistance and help with the website, understanding why for us that project was so important and being really flexible and collaborative with how we solve the challenges that were there from the outset, but also the ones that emerged along the way. These projects rarely run smoothly from start to finish. So having a partner or a series of partners who embrace that and, kind of what we're looking to achieve is really important as well.
And just on that point, do you prefer to surround yourself with lots of agencies with specialities in different aspects of digital and marketing, or do you prefer to have a more generalist agency looking after everything?
Great question. So I think probably a little bit of both. We are a scale up. The marketing team is sort of 5 or 6 strong now. For a good while, it was just me and another colleague. So there's only a certain amount of hours in the day, and our knowledge and experience only goes so far. So at different times along that journey, we've needed I guess to begin with, it was a little bit more generalist, people to come in and help us with a number of different challenges. Now we understand who we are, what we're doing, kind of where we're at and where we're looking to get. We know the exact problem within a little that we need to solve, and if we don't feel like we have the skills and expertise in-house, we go out and obviously look to source that externally, which obviously is where you guys have come in. I think you've helped us upskill the team. I think Storyblock do a really good job with that as well, as do Salesforce and some of the other tools we do, and that gets us to a good solid base level within the team. But yeah, there are, in this sort of digital age now, there's too much nuance for us to be specialists in everything. So I guess for the way I'm leaning now is, sort of specialists within a certain area and really add value in that one area, especially if we've identified that as a priority, is probably the way I'd lean.
Cool. You did touch on AI a little bit earlier in one of your answers, but I just wondered whether you've got any insight or anything you can chat about today that can help our viewers and listeners understand how AI is going to play a part in your organization in the future. What kind of applications are you seeing or forecasting for it?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably talk for some time on this, because the kind of cliche answer is that it creates a whole bunch of opportunities, which I certainly agree with. There's also some risks and challenges attached. Again, I think those are fairly well publicized as well. From our perspective, again, going back to our specific challenges around the repositioning piece, we need to be able to produce higher quality, higher volume content that is engaging, compelling, and talks to the specific challenges that our various key target territories have. As I said, there's some commonalities, but there's a lot of nuance in there. So AI allows us to create and scale our content and campaign creation quite easily, which is definitely one benefit that we're finding. But again, it's probably the analytics piece as well. We collect a huge amount of data from each of those different channels that we talked about earlier. Being able to get those into our CRM in a consistent fashion where we have a high degree of trust that the accuracy is where we need it to be, and the insights and intel you're gleaning from that is actionable. So yeah, I think those are probably the two most important areas, specifically within marketing. I know across the business as well, sort of my peers, there's sort of similar but not exactly the same set of challenges, but they're finding AI is a component of the solution to those channels. It's not a silver bullet. I have relatively strong feelings around, the general feeling that AI is going to sort of take jobs. I don't think that's the case. However, if there are different applications for it, and different interpretations of what it can do. If you think AI is going to come in and just solve all your problems from a content creation perspective, I think that's the wrong approach. But can it augment and optimize some stuff that was already going on and allow you to scale it? I absolutely do. And we've seen quite a bit of evidence that the content we're putting out now, both in terms of the volume of it and the kind of breadth and variety of it, has improved. And we're seeing that reflected in the metrics that we care about in terms of people hanging around on the website, the number of downloads we're getting, all those key metrics that you keep an eye on from a website performance perspective have all gone up. And I don't see that as a coincidence, since we've kind of incorporated that into a more formalized, coherent strategy around campaign content creation and the impact of AI on that.
And have you had to change much within like the infrastructure of Storyblock to make sure that you are producing content in the right formats, in the right quantities and volumes to appeal to the ChatGPT channels rather than like the traditional Google search channels?
Oh, I was just talking about this yesterday, actually. We had an all hands session and kind of, again, a big opportunity, but also a challenge. We, like most organizations, invest quite a bit of money in Google. We play around with kind of Bing and Reddit and others too, but that's, a decent chunk of our time and budget has gone into building and optimizing that. But obviously I think some of the statistics around, LLMs encroaching on search volume can't be ignored. I think it's sort of 5-6 trillion searches on Google last year. That number's not gone down, to the best of my knowledge, significantly. But I know from my own personal habits, both in and out of work, that I'm now leaning on, whether it be Claude or Perplexity or Gemini or ChatGPT. And I think a lot of people, my peers, are doing the same. So AI overviews are another thing. I think it's roughly 30% of all searches now are returning an AI overview. So the concept of zero click is a thing I didn't think I had to worry about, but is now a problem. So discoverability is a constant theme for us, and this just moves the goalpost ever so slightly. But again, we work with agencies that are really proactive in coming up with solutions to that. Again, there are new tools available that help and support organizations like us do that. But for me, a natural curiosity around these things, which is helpful because I'm kind of into the subject that I work in. So that's very helpful. I encourage my team to do the same. But again, that's why we have to constantly review the technology stack, because, I think one or two of the technologies that we're playing around with now, just in kind of pilot forms, they're probably going to be integrated into that technology stack relatively soon, because I think the impact of LLMs can't be ignored. I think burying your head in the sand is probably the wrong thing, because it's unlikely to go away. So lots to like play out in that space, but and most of which I'm excited by, I should say. But yeah, there is like you said, a challenge and a risk there all at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. So I think we'll wrap up with one final question, and it's more about you actually, and the
Okay.
journey that you've been on with Cloud Gateway. Obviously, I've known you guys for a few years now, and it's been really exciting to see you evolve. But I think having your insight into like what you would change, what advice would you give yourself if you can go back and speak to yourself like at the beginning of your time with Cloud Gateway? What would you change? What would you do differently?
Well, a ton is probably the answer, because I think yeah, you do learn more from them. It's a cliche, but you learn more from the mistakes than you do necessarily the things that go well. I think I was relatively young when I got this position, so I had a natural nervousness around getting things done and getting things done almost overnight. And I think what I quickly realised is that's very, very difficult. Like we're we're born in the cloud era. We're very tech savvy and embrace innovation. We've been talking about this with our technology stack. So, I was in an environment where, the pace of change was quick and it was encouraged. It's not necessarily fail and fail fast, but don't get stuck letting perfection be the enemy of good, especially when you're a startup or a scale up as we are now. You've not got the time to spend months or years even on these big projects. You need to be able to deliver value iteratively, and that means it might not be perfect first go. But going back to some of the tools we're talking about, most of them embrace that kind of concept anyway. They allow you to play around, iterate, A/B test, whatever the case may be, and kind of improve and refine on the go. And I think we've now got a really good blend of kind of that. We don't want to be churning out content or new web pages or new features on the portal, cutting corners and just delivering sake. But at the same time, yeah, I think there needs to be a balance in that, and I've certainly learned that pretty quickly. And then I think the second one is kind of a good fitting way to end. It's around surrounding yourself with the right network of partners and collaborators and contributors. That can be internally and externally. The business actually, we're a relatively small business, or 40 to 50 people, and a lot of that growth has come in the last year or two. So we've got quite a collaborative approach. I know most organizations would say that. I genuinely believe that about Cloud Gateway. So we work very closely with the product team. We work very closely with customer success. We work very closely with the sales team, which I think is good, certainly in the context of what we're talking about here. But I guess the point I was going to lead with is having you guys on board. We had another couple of organizations that we trust. We've been working with them a number of years. And those relationships may have started out relatively small, but we've been able to grow them as that kind of trust has been built and as we've managed to achieve good things together. So I think one, not letting perfect be the enemy of good, but also surrounding yourself with good, knowledgeable people, both internally and externally, and realizing you're not in this alone, right? You can build a team of people, and I think that plays nicely to one of the biggest challenges we've had, which is scalability, and the website and some of the other stuff we've worked with you guys on recently is a good testament to that.
That's great, some wise words there, Myles, and I'm sure everyone will be really grateful to hear them. And for me, it just leaves me to say thank you ever so much for joining us for this edition of CX Conversations. It's been really informative, and yeah, I look forward to chatting to you again soon.
Lovely. Well, thank you for having me.